Well, hello and good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar. Tonight's webinar, we are going to be talking about the female hormone blueprint, different ways on how to optimize your estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, those wonderful hormones that tend to rule our lives, and about how genetics works into that, how we can influence the metabolism of estrogen, progesterone production, cortisol regulation, that stress hormone. How do we do this? What are the things that are bothering you the most as you are going through your life, through this hormonal journey? Okay. And actually, just a quick ask for all of those of you joining us, please fill out our poll. We'd really like to see the demographics of who we are speaking with tonight. And we can also know what to focus on. Where are your interests? So I have the absolute honor and delight of being joined by an esteemed colleague of mine, brilliant, beautiful, gone through so much herself, and just is a wealth of information. Dr. Stephanie Nielsen, thank you so much for being here. And as she is joining us, I also want to say thank you for being here with us, for having us be a part of your life, a part of your family. And with that, I want to let all of you know that our fourth issue of the DNA Talks Digest will be coming out next Tuesday, April 8th. And we are really doing a lot of the focus around fertility. And mental health. So a lot of these things that a lot of women deal with and have dealt with. I mean, I personally have dealt with it, but also like my daughter had dealt with issues of it. I've got clients who have dealt with infertility, and it's just a wealth of information, tips, techniques, ideas, and stories to share. So I please invite you. You can access the digest right on our app, The DNA Way. If you haven't downloaded yet, please do so. It's on, any of your app stores. Just type in The DNA Way. Download that. Even if you haven't done our DNA 360 test yet, this is for you as well, because it will headline and give you access to sign up for these webinars at a one-stop shop, seeing our digest. You can look back at previous webinars. And if you do have your DNA 360 done, you can access that information right on your phone, right on that device. And if you have, say, another form of DNA where you have your CSV files, you can actually upload that to our app, and it will work through our algorithm to give you information. And we have great educational information on that app as well. So again, thank you for joining us. And do we have Dr. Stephanie in the house?
Yes, I'm right here.
Oh,
you don't see me?
No, there you are. Oh,
I was going to say, you didn't look like you knew that you had anybody else along with you.
I did have some really important information to share. So that way, people knew how easy it was to be able, to access us, the information, and all the wonderful things we have. So
fabulous.
Welcome, Dr. Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Haven't gotten to host with you in a beat. So
I know. I have had so many clients. It has been so great to see all the people that are growing and all the people that are getting their DNA done and then really just wanting to dive in. And it's been wonderful. But I'm here and I'm going to be here actually quite a bit during April. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be a great thing.
Fantastic.
So tonight I'm so excited. We're talking about optimizing hormones. Woo! using your genetics, using your other tests, and seeing what we can do to help you get the most out of it. And you know what? Should we start with the panel questions just so that we know who all we're talking to
Actually,
tonight?
I think that would be the best place to start. And that way we can jump into what our audience is most looking to learn.
Yeah. Because I really like down and dirty. Let's get things that they can utilize and let's get things that they can apply on their own. And if they can't work with those, then we've got people that they can work with.
Excellent. And I already see that we've got some questions coming in our Q&A, which is fantastic.
Yay.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, we like this to be real
putting
interactive. So whether it's in the chat, we'll be asking you some things. We'll have you put answers in the chat. And then if you have specific questions, put those in the Q&A. We'll generally go 45, 55 minutes, and then we'll try to answer those questions personally at the end.
So if we could have our poll answers actually pop up from our angels in the background, that would be fantastic. Excellent. So it looks like our first question, the age range that is joined us here today, the majority of them are between ages 50 and 59. I fall in that category too. Next, it is almost an even split between 40 to 49 and 60 to 69. And we've got this beautiful bell curve. I love it. Then followed by our 70 and over, as well as our 30 to 39. And I am so pleased to see that we have some people under 30 years old here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I think this is wonderful for you to step in early to start learning about your hormones, start learning about the journey in front of you. So absolutely, this is for everyone.
And I see a lot of early perimenopause and I see some going through menopause. So I'm sure if you guys are perimenopause and having symptoms or going through menopause, why don't you put a 1 in the chat? Let's see how many ones we get, because I'm betting it's going to go and, and here they go. Yep. Well, that's a good deal. Yeah. Well, and so that's what we want to address. We want to help you right in the middle of this. Get it done. Yes, look at that. All right, let's do question 2 while we get those ones flying down the way.
Okay, so our second question was, which hormone-related symptoms have you experienced recently? And yeah, there's a lot, and they usually don't just come alone. They come with friends. So our biggest one is sleep disturbances, sleep disruptions. And yeah, that's a huge one. And that generally triggers issues with the others, getting into fatigue coming in at, number 2. Then we've got weight fluctuations, mood changes, and anxiety. PMS and perimenopausal symptoms, actually a little bit lower on this, compared to the others. And I'll tell you what, for those of you who have no symptoms at all, bless you. You're obviously doing something right there.
Well, they're either the under 30 group, the over 70 group, or they've been on and they've got their shit together.
Exactly. And it's wonderful to see. And there's always things on ways to optimize, or maybe even, giving some wisdom to the rest of the people here today. So fantastic. Love to see that. Our next question, what do you want to learn about hormones? Yeah, you guys just want to know it all. Number 1 being sleep. So yes, we're definitely going to be focusing on sleep tonight.
Okay.
Then talking about BHRT, diet, and testing coming in last, but all of them being around the same amount of percentage rates. So fantastic. And our last question, which I think is so important and is a little more tenuous nowadays, is, do you currently have healthcare providers supporting you with your hormone health? And I am so happy to see that the majority of you say yes. And that is so important to have that support. And I hope that support is from an educated point of view that you are getting what you need, and not being gaslit, because unfortunately that does happen more too often, I should say. But we still have 35% that say no, that you're not being supported right now, and that's important. You need to be, and that's what we're here to help you with, to give you some information so you can start asking the right questions, start looking and shedding light in the right areas. We've got almost 15% saying that you are actively looking, and 8% saying I'm not sure where to start. And again, we are hoping that you find information here, even if it is something that you decide to work with us, that we can actually help with helping you, educating you, giving you recommendations, tips, tricks, and all the wonderful things in that holistic health fashion to help with all of the things that you all have mentioned that are important to you. So, and we have plenty of programs that could work in your time budget, in what you can put forth. And we've got wonderful practitioners that can help you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really want everybody to be empowered with right now is you have a PhD in you, whether it's Linda or Leslie or Angie or Amber or Robert or Sam. You have a PhD in you. So, especially when Lara's talking about don't let anyone tell you that you don't have these symptoms, or don't let someone tell you that, oh, don't worry about it. You'll get through it. Uh, it's really important that you realize your providers work for you. So they need to help brainstorm. I was on with clients today who were struggling with a little bit of their hormones, and they had gone back to their traditional provider. And one woman in particular was bleeding, and her provider said, let's up your estrogen. And I said to her, well, that's going to cause you to bleed more. And she said, no, my provider said it won't. Well, it did. I said, no, progesterone stops it, estrogen augments it. So I had given her a recommendation to be in one place. She was starting to have, in her late 50s, she was starting to have cycles again. We wanted to back that down a little. And I'm a pharmacist, so I don't prescribe. I work with prescribing physicians, but I guide and monitor. And so I said, no, 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 we need to up the other. Well, it was interesting because she knew this. She worked with a provider who did the exact opposite. She had the result that we knew she would have. She had more bleeding, and the provider just looked like this. Really? Okay, well, what did you want me to do? So, not all providers mean to not accomplish your goals, but some of them just don't know. Hormones are a real special bag, and they're a real special beast. And somebody who just flirts with hormones may do kind of like this provider had done, which was kind of going the opposite direction. No fault of their own, except it's just not their specialty. So we were able to get her back on track. We were able to get her back, where she was doing well. She went back to this provider after that. And, the provider said, oh, this is great. It's great that we've got this guidance that we can all work together. And so the big part of that is you need to be willing to speak up for yourself. No, this isn't working for me. No, I don't want to be on traditional like Premarin, which is mare urine. I want to be on a bioidentical hormone if you're going to go on those. These are the choices that I'm comfortable with. And what we want to do here is educate you the differences, because again, some of those providers don't know the difference between synthetic and natural, the ones that your body will work with. And especially if you've done your DNA, and we can see pathways. Now, when you do your DNA, it's not an absolute, it's a blueprint. This is just like a house. This is what the house is laid out. But are you decorating it modern, or you're doing it country, or are you doing it light, or are you doing it dark? Your lifestyle, other factors influence that. So we want to help guide you through that today. But the most important thing is make sure that you are willing to assert yourself. And especially as you're going through perimenopause, maybe you're feeling oh my gosh, just can't think the way I used to. I just feel weepy all the time. It's very easy to get bowled over. And what you have to do is say, I'm worth being listened to. I am worth getting some good answers. I am worth knowing the next step because take it from both Lara and I, and others on here, we've lived through that. We've had the brain fog. We've had the sleepless nights. We've had the hot flashes. There is life after this, and there's a quicker way to get there. And we want to be part of that solution.
So let's jump into some of the ways that uh, hormones affect sleep, seeing that that was, first of all, one of our number one things where people, their sleep was being affected. And Ivy and Kathy both commented hot flashes. Hot flashes wasn't on the list. Sorry about that. And, I remember when I was going through perimenopause and menopause, the hot flashes, the night sweats. Do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about how does that work? What happens, as, people in perimenopause going into menopause, what causes this to happen?
Well, there's several genes that we look at. And remember, the DNA company works with actionable genes. There's a lot of companies that work with genes that are nice, fun, what they call traits. We work with things that it's like, here's the gene, here's your version, good or bad, here's how we manipulate it so you can get a different result. So we have the BDNF, which is going to affect the brain. We have the clock, which affects your circadian rhythms. We have the CYP2R1, that's going to affect the breakdown. We have the VDR, we have the GC. So if you've done your DNA 360, these are things you can pull out and look at. So when we look at sleep, one of the things we want to look at is circadian rhythms. What's a circadian rhythm mean? Circadian rhythm means when do you naturally wake up? When do you naturally go to sleep? A lot of us don't get ourselves in those natural patterns. When you start getting sleepy at 9:30 or 10 and you're like, oh, I just can't, whether it is the kids aren't in bed yet, whether it is I've got to finish the dishes, whether it is I haven't had any time with my spouse, we force ourselves to stay up. We then get a raise in our cortisol. So we get a second, wind. And then we're like up till 12, 1, 2. And then you go to bed, you're up at 6. And because you got to go to work and then you're exhausted all day. One of the first things you can do is listen to your body. If you listen to your body, I'm tired now, go to bed. What do we tell young mothers when they have new kids? If the baby's sleeping and you're sleepy, go to sleep, you know? And yeah, Lena, I'll type those in just a minute. When Dr. Lara's talking, I'll put in some of those. If you have your DNA 360, you can look at your sleep report, and under circadian rhythms, you can see some of these. But again, it's the BDNF, the clock gene, the CYP2R1, the GC, and the VDR. So, and I'll type those out. The second thing to think about is what are some of the factors? And Lara, you and I can go back and forth. One of the biggest ones is a lot of people don't realize how important their brain is to get sunlight in the morning and the sensitivity, because we're on computers all day, the sensitivity to blue light. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about blue light, and I'll type some of these genes in.
Well, blue light actually directly affects our brain sensitivity and melatonin production. So if you are on blue light late in the evening, your melatonin is not being produced. Well, I mean, it does a little bit, but really not enough. And it's also telling your brain, oh, it's still daylight, it's still releasing some cortisol, giving you energy, giving you, awareness and, some stress, because it actually does cause stress on the eyes. It causes eye strain. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I wear my Viva Rays, my blue light blockers, during the daytime. when I'm in front of blue light, I'll wear my yellow tinge. Once the sun goes down, I'll put my orange lenses on. And because that's telling my body and my brain, okay, the sun has gone down. Now it's time to start winding down. And then when it gets to be about an hour about an hour before I go to sleep, then I take the orange off and then I put the red lenses on, because what it does is it mimics uh, firelight, because our genes, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years old. Okay. Our ancestors didn't have, this artificial light. This is new. And our genes haven't caught up to our technology.
Mhm.
So our brains, our bodies, our cells, our genes are still in that ancestral form and going and relating and reacting to the light coming through our eyes. So we want that more reddish hues, as the sun goes down, look at the sky. What is it? It's more of that reddish, that deep orange hues. After it goes down in the firelight, it's more of those deep red, okay, maybe a little bit of yellow, but just having that, but it has a calming effect. And that helps with that melatonin production, helps when adenosine builds up and starts making you tired. All of these different hormones and neurotransmitters that are there to help us bring us into that slumber, that time that is for restore and that regeneration time. When we go against that, it throws our bodies off, going, what the hell is going on? So we want to make sure that we keep up with technology by using technology into protecting the way that our bodies are receiving information, and the way that the best way we can to keep the hormones, to keep the neurotransmitters in that normal rhythmic cycle that is most optimal to our health.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is really important is what's the practical application to this? Practical application is get up in the morning when it's bright. Don't stay in bed till 9 or 10 or noon. So get up, and you need at least 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight in your eyes. Don't have your sunglasses on because that's blocking. You've got to have that direct into your brain so that it sets up the brain to say, I will produce melatonin at night to keep me asleep. Okay. So the other thing that people have been misled for a lot of years is people have said you can't take melatonin because it will shut off your natural melatonin. The most recent studies don't support that at all. In fact, what we're finding is just like we have menopause, just like we have andropause, which is the male version of menopause, we also have a melatonopause, which means melatonin becomes lower and lower and lower. Think about your parents and grandparents. My parents used to sleep so deeply, then they stopped sleeping, then my grandparents were up all night, then I used to, go visit my grandparents, and my grandfather would be up 2 or 3 times, or he'd shuffle around. So it is okay to use some supplementation. Now, my personal bent as a pharmacist, as a clinical nutritionist, and as a functional genetic practitioner is that we find a combination of things that we layer. Do you have primary insomnia, which means you have trouble going to sleep? We use one set of supplements and lifestyles for that. Or do you have secondary, where you wake up at that 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning? Maybe you can get back to sleep, maybe you can't. Part of those are due to your genes, and we've got to make sure we're optimizing your gene function, getting on a regular sleep pattern. If you don't care if you are, go to bed at 9:30, or if you've got to go to bed at 10:30, after 11 o'clock, you're really not maximizing the amount of time. And I think it's really important for you to know regularity. If you want to have consistency and learn to get back to sleep. And it is a reverse engineered sleep skill. We had a wonderful gal on our podcast, Molly Eastman, about learning to get back to sleep. So you can always go back to one of our old podcasts. And Lewis says, melatonin doesn't work for everyone. You're right, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is some people are scared of melatonin, and I don't want them to be scared of melatonin. It's also really important that you set a time that you get up. Lara says there's a lot of benefit to having your own circadian rhythm. Where am I a night owl? Am I an early person? But I will tell you, as Lara said, for thousands and 10,000s of years, people went to sleep when it got dark and they got up when it was light. And that is what truly, as a Homo sapien, we're meant to do. And so we understand that there's babies, we understand that there's work, we understand there are other problems with that. But if you can get out in the morning for 15 minutes to an hour with direct sunlight in your eyes, no glasses on them, no blocking, that'll get in and really help for when you go at night. Then when we're looking at nighttime preparation, you're not going to want to hear this. You may not like me, but you really need to get off your phone. You need to get off the computer 1 to 2 hours before bed. So now we're going to talk a little bit about sleep hygiene, and we'll jump back into the genes. So sleep hygiene has to do, how do you clean up your pattern? I turn off my Wi-Fi. Lara, do you turn off your Wi-Fi?
Depending on where I am, if I have control over it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those subtle electromagnetic frequencies, those pulse, whether you can feel them or not, your body feels them, your brain feels them, and that pulse is like, am I supposed to be up? Am I supposed to be up? And that starts pumping dopamine and other things that are okay. What am I doing? So you've got to get off those. If you can't get off your phone or, something, then what you've got to do is you've got to get blue light blockers on your phone, blue light blockers on the glasses, as Lara said, whether they're the orange ones or whether they're the red ones. Those will help most effectively. Don't have bright lights in your bedroom. Another one, you're not going to like me. No TVs in the bedroom. Don't fall asleep to your TV. If you want to fall asleep to some music, that's fine, as long as you have a timer that goes off. Your bedroom needs to be completely dark. Melatonin is stimulated by light in the morning, and then at night, it needs to go off, and you need to have dark. The darker your room is, and then the contrast with the bright in the morning will start stimulating that natural pattern. The body also is very powerful with scent and taste. So what is scent? The scent is, if you want to have lavender or a favorite fragrance that you like that says, it's bedtime. Excuse me, I'm going to cough for a minute. Every time your body smells lavender, then it'll go, it's time to shut down. Choose a scent that is particularly made just for your bedtime. I used to have a specific for my kids, one type of a CD that I played over and over and over, and they were bedtime lullabies. And you know what? It didn't matter if I put them in their bedrooms or if we had the CD in the car. The second they would hear they would drop. Why? It was that Pavlovian response to, they knew that that was time to shut down and go to sleep. So do you have a ritual of a gratitude journal or a meditation or prayer time or listening to something soothing? Yeah, Mary, some people with essential oils, they can be hormone disruptors for some people, not for everyone. Again, we're going on some generalities and we can get them more, but you can also just have a flower. If you have, say, natural rose petals and you save the rose petals. Not every suggestion is going to work for absolutely every person, but they will work for more than not. And then we can get into those specifics for the others. What are some of the other things that you have, Lara, for sleep, as far as sleep hygiene, to get people some real tangible things that they can work into?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. And I love the things that you have already mentioned. Um, Really, it is considering the four pillars of sleep. QQRT, quantity, quality, regularity, and timing. And you specifically talked about regularity. Okay. So um, when you think of quantity, make sure that you are giving yourself time to have that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And we're not talking about going to bed at 11 and waking up at 6, because there is what we call a latency time, which is the time that you're actually laying down to the time that you actually fall asleep. Now, there is an amount of time that is more optimal, like 10 to 15 minutes is generally optimal. If you fall asleep too quickly, then that means like you're overexhausted. Where if it's taking you much longer to fall asleep, then it might be because, did you drink coffee too late in the day or have some sort of stimulants? Did you have something, a supplement or something that, energized you and is not allowing you to fall asleep? I mean, there's so many different things. But you want to make sure that you give your body the time that you are actually asleep, going through all of those particular sleep cycles, light sleep, your non-REM sleeps, okay? Light sleep, deep sleep, okay? But then also your REM sleep. And you cycle through about 4 of these a night. So you have to give yourself that time, all right? Um, Quality, uh, the best way that you can promote the quality is by having a good sleep hygiene routine. And something to remember is that you need to warm up to cool down to fall asleep. So taking a warm bath, Epsom salt bath or something, like an hour or so before bed. Okay. Warm it up because you want to expand, dilate your vasculature, the capillaries, so that way that blood can cool off and start cooling your core body temperature down, because you have to warm up to cool down. Your body temperature will actually drop 2 to 3 degrees in order for you to be into that deep sleep state. You have to stay cool to stay asleep. So, you may initially have a lot of blankets and stuff, but then you'll get hot. And then, of course, the night sweats, which maybe we can get into a little bit later. And then you're throwing covers off, and then you get cold and you're putting the covers back on. And it's like that can be a major disruption. So, having the temperature in your room cool, and we're talking like, 65 degrees actually is really good. Because that coolness helps you to stay asleep. And then you warm up to wake up. Like when the sun is coming out and the earth is warming up, this is also what wakes us up. And that's why I had mentioned about too many covers, sweating, kicking them off, waking up, especially if you have sensitivity, or if your bed partner wants to cuddle and they're like a little furnace, that'll also wake you up. If you have the room temperature too high, obviously that is going to be disruptive, and your body is going to constantly be like, oh, it's time to wake up. Is it time to wake up? Minimizing any sounds also is another thing. If you have like a freezer or refrigerator or something, because your bedroom is close to the kitchen, and that mechanical whir comes on periodically and is waking you up, or other sounds, say, a dog snoring or your partner snoring or something, have some sort of white or pink noise to help drown out, those low tone ambient sounds, so they're not waking you up. Other things, I use mouth tape. I love the mouth tape.
Me too.
This is fantastic because my mouth does tend to fall open in the middle of the night, and I'll start getting a little bit of dry mouth or maybe a light snore. When I wear the mouth tape, I don't have to worry about that. Obviously, you have to make sure your nasal passages are clear because you want to be able to breathe. But one thing that being able to mouth tape to keep the mouth closed, it doesn't dry out. It also helps to release vasopressin. And what vasopressin does, it's an antidiuretic, meaning that you don't have to get up and go pee in the middle of the night. I've had several clients where that was an issue. Woke up 4 and 5 times a night to have to go pee. Well, not only did we work on, okay, let's monitor how much liquids you are taking in a certain amount of time before you're going to bed, but also with the mouth tape, it either lowered where they only woke up maybe once or twice a night instead of 4 or 5 times, or they didn't wake up at all
Right.
anymore. And it's really, it can be a game changer for some people. So
So with
those
the
are
mouth tape, what tape do you use?
um I actually go with a very simple uh a 3M. It's a micro pore for sensitive skin,
Mhm.
1 inch wide
Mhm.
surgical tape.
So there's so I want to say Somninex, but that doesn't sound like it's I think it's Somnilenex is
Mhm.
one that is the shape of lips and it has a little hole right here. And it says to use one per night. I can use one for a whole week. You've got to be careful if you put a lot of cream on your mouth because then it will just slip off. I've used medical tape like you did, the micropore or the thing, and I'll put 2 strips this way. If you're not sure that you want to tape your whole mouth in the beginning, you can do a couple strips this way. That way you can breathe if you want to, you know. Um, it also works like a great waxing, at least in the beginning. Um, and for guys with beards, that doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
There are several other brands. One of the brands, and it's going to sound horrible, but one of the brands that a lot of people really like is called hostage tape. It goes over across the mouth. They have all sorts of colors and things. But what it does is it forces you to breathe through your nose. So one, you don't snore. Two, you get more oxygen to the brain. By more oxygen in the brain, you're actually going to sleep more deeply. So that does work really well. I think that's a great thing. I noticed a question while you were talking when we were talking about the light and how important the light is. Um, and 2 things that came up. One, people said, what do you suggest if you can't get out, if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of light? You know, maybe it's dark or the hours you work are different. What you can put in is you can look up SAD, seasonal affect disorder lamps, and there are Verilux happy lamps. There's the Spurti vitamin D lamps. There's the circadian optics lumen light therapy. So you can put in SAD lamps, or you can also put in light bulbs that mimic natural light. And those are all good things that you can sit in front of to work and get that natural light as opposed to, you know, a very bright blue light that you can do. Also, I saw a couple questions about what is the right amount of time to sleep. What I'll tell you is I'm a 6 to 7 hour. I wake up fresh, 6 hours almost on the dot, unless I've gone to bed a little too late. However, I used to be a 9 hour girl. I was a 9 hour girl when my hormones were out of whack. So when someone says, what's the range? They've statistically shown that 6 hours is the minimum for you to truly get your nervous system into the cycles of the parasympathetic repair, to also have your light sleep, your deep sleep, your REM sleep, all the different cycles. Everyone needs a little different amount of time depending on how far out of whack you are, how much inflammation you have. And so you want to, again, listen to your body when it comes to that, but also know that if you naturally wake up in a certain amount of time, run with that, but then get up and don't linger. Because once the body says it's up, just like going, I'm tired at night, but I force myself to stay up, and then you get the second win. If it's I'm up and awake, and then you force yourself to go back to sleep, you kind of feel tired all day. Try to start getting into that natural rhythm.
We have got a lot of questions. So in our question and answer. So
Yeah.
let's jump into those.
Yeah,
Um, we'll
sure.
start answering them. And actually, the first one from Erica, she says she's 49 and postmenopausal. All signs point to needing BHRT months ago, but she's a little nervous on, what does she do about that? Because her genetics reveal issues with, possible estrogen toxicity risk. She's had blood work done. Her levels are low. So she's asking, is there something specific to look for or test, or is it just moving forward with BHRT and watching for symptoms?
Well, I know my answer. um, your ND advised against the Dutch. That's kind of surprising to me. Saying she only uses that test for perimenopause. I completely disagree. I am postmenopausal. I'm 61. I do a Dutch every 2 years and I use it on all of my postmenopausal women. Why? Because we can look at your cortisol. We can look at your organic acids. We can look, is your BHRT high enough that it's giving you the control that you need? Now, do you have to be up at luteal levels or things? No, but we've got to know where your levels are and we've got to know the pathways you're breaking down. The biggest thing about the Dutch, and anybody who doesn't know what a Dutch test is, dry urine test comprehensive hormones. So you've got to look at your pathways. Again, my very first touch test was late 50s. I was perimenopausal at 48. By 52, I was menopausal. What does it mean to be menopausal? It means 1 full year without a period. I went on bioidenticals, but I went on bioidenticals that brought me right back up to cycling. And when they brought me right back up to cycling, then I cycled until I was 60 years old. Now, not all of you may want to do that, but that was the right decision for me. If I didn't have a Dutch to look at my pathways, because I have estrogen dominance, I have estrogen toxicity, then I would have gone down a pathway where I would have set that up. Now, maybe my levels were normal um, on my blood work, but it showed me going down the wrong pathway. It showed me going down the 2-hydroxy pathway, which causes proliferation. Proliferation can be great if I'm proliferating bone tissue, but it is negative if I'm proliferating something like a abnormal cell that could lead into cancer. So absolutely do a Dutch. And if she won't do it for you, we provide Dutch and we can read them. Uh, Absolutely consider BHRT, especially because you're perimenopausal. The biggest studies in the world have shown if we can get you perimenopausal before you're menopausal, you have the greatest long-term benefits. Greatest long-term benefits. So I've been on BHRT, 10 or 12 years now, and I can tell you I am not going off anytime soon. I did get a little toxic. I went through a divorce. I moved back to take care of my parents, who my father has Alzheimer's and Parkinson. Both my kids moved away. I became an empty nester. I went through like all the major things you could go through. And I did get very toxic. Why? Because my environment got, very different and all the stress. And I had to regulate and go back in and adjust all of that. But I knew it was some of my symptoms. I had a lot of breast tenderness. Some of you may remember earlier or last year, we brought out the DNA Breast 360. I was the first candidate to use that, and I had an active profile that showed there was concern. Now, here I am. I've always had my mammograms. I only do them every 2 to 5 years. I'm not an every year. I don't like to radiate my boobies. But it came back and said that I was at full on risk. I did my Dutch again, and I was high in my 16 again. My two, yeah, my anyway, my metabolite that was for proliferation. I was good on my 2-hydroxy, which helps keep everything healthy. My 4-hydroxy was not bad, but I just had all this proliferation. I had to get myself on some DIM. I had to get myself on some calcium D-glucarol. Biggest thing is I had to clean up my liver and clean up my gut. And I'm not afraid to say when I was going through a stressful time, while I said I was just drinking occasionally, it was occasionally daily, you know, and that threw my body off. I had not been much of a drinker, but it was like, I'll just have one glass. What's one thing? It just makes me feel relaxed. But I'm also a celiac. So my gut was off, my liver was off, threw all my hormones off, cleaned all that up. Now my did my second test, things were better. I'm about ready to do my third test. I've already had all the other testing. All of my inflammatory markers are down. How would I have known that if I hadn't done my Dutch? So I'm a major proponent for the Dutch. And yes, it is time for you to look at someone and be evaluated for BHRT because I don't think you can start soon enough. When things start going down, if you start getting a cold, don't you start taking vitamin C or zinc or doing something? Why do we wait till we hit rock bottom before we're going to supplement? If you break a leg, you use crutches. You know, the BHRT is getting your body back to a level where you can maintain your sanity, your brain, you know, your vitality, your libido, your sleep, all of that's so critical. Don't wait till you rock bottom before you do it.
Yes, good. And good answer. And thank you for sharing that information. Because actually, I think that touches on several of the questions because I've been scanning through a lot of the questions that people have been asking. Mary has a quick question. Do you recommend wild yam cream for progesterone support? If so, do you recommend a brand and where to find it?
You know what? I've seen a lot of people who have done very well. Progesterone is really great for sleep. Again, a lot of you wanted to know about sleep tonight. That can really help relax the body. Looking at the Dutch, you can go down two different pathways. The alpha pathway are the people who get the biggest benefit. The beta pathway, they do not, but it doesn't hurt to try it. There's several of them out there. I don't have a specific one that I am married to, or I think it's only the best one. Try to do high quality, try to do a reputable brand that has some clinical studies surrounding it, I would say. And a lot of hormones, and I'm just going to say this right now, a lot of them are trial and error. There is no one recipe that fits everyone. And that's one of the problems that I have with a lot of the providers. I have a local provider who I have recommended, and I recommended 3 or 4 people, and they all came out with the same regimen. And I looked, and one was a 78-year-old gal, and one was a 38-year-old gal, and one was a 58-year-old gal. And they all had different issues, and they all had the same regimen. And I went back to him and I'm like, hey, what's going on? You know? And he's like, well, it works for 75% of the people that come in here. And I said, yeah, but my people are these 25 percenters. They're not just cookie cutters. So don't let somebody just cookie cutter you. If it's not working, you go back in and push a little more and say, hey, this hasn't worked. What can we do that's different? But I would try it, Mary.
And I think that when it comes to women's health and hormones, first and foremost, there has to be awareness. And that's why you all are here and why we are here tonight and doing what we're doing, all of the webinars, all of the She Summits, which by the way, you know, we've got 3 more this year that we will be doing. But this is what we're giving you is that awareness. Second thing would be, what does the science have to say? Digging in and saying, okay, let's look at this. And I mean, it's good to have the information. Oh, this works for 75% of the people. But, you know, having that foundational information is very important. But then it really ultimately comes down to the third thing is the N of 1. Having you, the person going through all of this, you know, us as practitioners, you know, that person sitting in front of us, what does your genetics say? Trying this, you know, how does this work for you based on all of the things that make you, your own N of 1. So, you know, and this is really where it gets into that personalized medicine and, you know, personalized help. So,
Well,
which
and that's also why we have personalized programs here.
exactly.
Because a lot of times people do have cookie cutter providers And whether you do an episodic visit or whether you decide to do a program, whether you have 2 or 4 or 6, where we're really helping you tweak what is the right program for you, what is the right diet, what is the right sleep regimen, we can help you with your BHRT, we can help you fine tune. I mean, as a pharmacist and a functional medicine pharmacist, it's test, don't guess. I don't care whether it's your omega-3, omega-6 balance, your chronic inflammation, your hormones. You know what? It's like, why, when there are valid tests out there that can tell us A and B, just like the DNA, the tests that we run show specific, here's where you fall into, let's look at your environment, and then let's go from there. If you know what a Venn diagram it is, it's where you take a bunch of circles and then right in the center is where you get your answer. So if you have your DNA, and then you have your Dutch, and then you have your serum hormone, and then you have your lifestyle, you put those 4 together, and there you are, right in there. But if everybody else is looking out here the way Western medicine does, here's the cardiologist, here's the GI doctor, here's the OB, here's your pediatrician, it's like nobody's talking to anybody. That's why we want to put it all together to help you, and especially having that DNA insight. Are you estrogen dominant? Do you have problems detoxifying? So besides being estrogen dominant, besides having estrogen toxicity, I don't detoxify. And I have messed up circadian rhythms. So I am a poster child for all the things that could go wrong. Yes, I had cancer at 21, but I'm here 40 years later to go, but you too can succeed. You too can dig in. You too can learn about what you've got going on. And we want to help you discover your best food, your best sleep, your best workout, your best environment to support your healing. Yeah.
And, for those of you out there who have not had your DNA 360 done, we actually have a sale going on right now where you get $50 off.
Yeah.
So it's built in at checkout. Please take advantage, because knowing that, again, that is your blueprint, that structure on which, gives us personalized information for you. And then we start filling in to understand the rest of your life. And actually, Mary, this is a different Mary, Mary Morrell, she says her DNA profile says she's estrogen dominant. So welcome to the club. I am too.
Yeah.
And she's postmenopausal, and she says surgical. So I'm suspecting you've had a hysterectomy.
Right.
She said she's only on progesterone cream. And how can she be estrogen dominant if she is postmenopausal? Now, I will say that there are different aspects to this. First, I'm going to speak on the genetic report aspect. Now, the genetic report is just that. It speaks to your genetics. Your genetics are what you are born with and what you die with. Those do not change at all whatsoever. What changes is their expression. That is epigenetics. And that's why what Dr. Stephanie was talking about, that here she is, estrogen dominant, a risk of estrogen toxicity, not very good detox pathways. But look at her. She had cancer at 21. She's still here. She's still kicking and looking gorgeous. And that's why I said in the beginning, she's gone through so much. She's been there, done that, and kicked its ass. And this is important because what she did is she learned about her genetics and learned the things on how to manipulate her genetic expression, which is epigenetics, to make sure that what she has, the blueprint she has, that she plays that and works that to its most optimal. So if you have a genetic profile, a hormone profile that says you are estrogen dominant, it just means strictly based on your genes, on how quickly the enzymatic conversions are from progesterone to testosterone, from testosterone to estrogen, which is the aromatase gene. from how quickly your hormones are cleared, the UGT genes, your glucuronidation pathway, how quickly you convert that to dihydrotestosterone, all of these different pathways. Based on that, we can tell you genetically what type of hormone profile you have. So in our cases, Mary, you included, you are estrogen dominant. So that doesn't take into effect of the actual estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your hormones, of how much your body is actually making at the time. That's epigenetics. And
However,
yes.
especially because you went into surgical menopause, you're still going to have fat, and your fat takes over producing estrogen, not just your ovaries. So if you had your uterus out, your ovaries out, and you say, okay, I'm menopausal, I don't have any more estrogen, not true. The reason women go between 40 and 50 and put on that thick waist is because we're putting on a layer of fat that's going to produce estrogen. You can still be estrogen dominant as a postmenopausal woman without being on HRT or BHRT, because your body is saying, I need estrogen. Estrogen takes care of your brain. It takes care of your eyes. It takes care of your heart. It takes care of your breasts. It takes care of so many receptors in your body, and you've got to have some of that to function efficiently. So looking at a metabolic pathway, either a 24-hour urine test or, again, back to a Dutch test, we can look down and see, how are you breaking this down? Do you have enough around? Should you be supplementing, or maybe you don't need to? Also, there's estrogenic foods. Excuse me. When I don't breathe, I get this little cough. I just talk so much. If you're having estrogenic foods like soy foods, then that can do to raise your estrogen, which can help if someone is estrogen deficient. However, it also, if you're estrogen dominant and that pathway doesn't clear properly, can put you into a situation of having that estrogen dominant. And as was pointed out earlier, very easy with all the endocrine disruptors in makeup and hair care and skin care and fragrances that go in and mess and are, mimicking estrogens, sit in those estrogen receptors. And then the estrogen receptors say, well, I've got plenty of estrogen here. Look, even though you don't have estrogen, you can go into estrogen dominance that way.
And I think it's also important to note that, when a woman postmenopausal and working through this, that as far as being estrogen dominant, androgen dominant, it really is about the relative balance between the two.
Mhm.
So, it's, again, this is where the test don't guess comes in, to actually see what is your body producing, how is it metabolizing, what metabolites are you creating? And this works right into the next question by Kendra, because she wanted to hear more about endometriosis and estrogen metabolism. I'll touch on the metabolism part, because when we're talking about estrogen metabolism, we actually cover 3 particular genes that look at how quickly genetically you would produce the 3 estrogen metabolites, the 2-hydroxy, 4-hydroxy, and 16-alpha hydroxyestrones. And with these genes, you'll find them in the hormone systems report. It's the CYP1A1, CYP1B1, and CYP3A4. So, these are what you're going to be looking at, because generally you'd like to see all of them be slow. Okay, that would be optimal. If you have any increased metabolism in any one of those, that can actually cause inflammation and therefore be an estrogen toxicity risk. Okay, but yes, of course, there are ways to help with that. And what Dr. Stephanie was talking about earlier, she had mentioned some of the things that she uses to help support the clearance and to not have them be metabolized into these metabolites so quickly. Things, cruciferous vegetables, DIM, which is diendyl methane, calcium D-glucarate, supporting your methylation pathway through B vitamins, etc. These help to clear those estrogen metabolites. So, but again, how well are you doing it? This is where things like the Dutch test comes in. So, did you want to make a comment on endometriosis quickly before because we do have a lot of other questions.
Yeah, I think, Kendra, the biggest thing with endometriosis is when you have dysregulated estrogen metabolism, then that leads to the endometriosis. You've got to look at all the hormones, not just estrogen, and it goes to the overall gut microbiome, because so much of chronic inflammation comes out of the gut and the liver clearance. So if you're looking at liver and gut regulation first, and then coming back to looking at your hormone balances, inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. We've got to knock the inflammation down, lifestyle, diet, and then if we can look at making sure that we have a clean gut and clean health, you'll have a lot less problem with it.
So we've got another question, and actually we've already been touching on some of this. This person is asking, and it's hi. I don't know if that's just a quick little cute handle or the person's name, but they're asking, can you talk about the CYP19? It's actually the CYP19A1 gene, which is the aromatase gene, which converts testosterone into estrogen. That pathway, genetic mutations that can decrease estrogen metabolism, and what can be done for that. So we've already actually touched on some of this, but specifically it is the CYP19A1 gene that aromatizes, it converts testosterone into estrogen. And yes, this happens in men too. Men need estrogen as well. And it is the T allele that is fast. The C allele is slow. So again, depending on how quickly you aromatize this testosterone can work into the type of genetic hormonal profile that you have. So basically, what does this do? This really involves whether you are having increased estrogen production, possible decreased metabolism. Those are the three genes that I had mentioned earlier, the CYP1A1, 1B1, and 3A4. So really what it is that you want to be aware of, first of all, what genetic variant do you have? What do you lean toward? And what can you do about it? So for say you have a fast, okay, first let's talk about the aromatization real quick. So if you are converting testosterone to estrogen too fast, there are certain natural aromatase inhibitors. This is basically slowing down that conversion. These are things like zinc, chrysin, resveratrol, grapeseed extract, green tea, which is the EGCG in green tea. Also, cruciferous vegetables, like I had already said, the I3C, DIM, these regulate estrogen levels. You do want to avoid alcohol because alcohol raises aromatase. And then, of course, I've already commented about the metabolization of them. Again, using those same types of things, the DIM, the diendyl methane, sulforaphane, which is the compound in like broccoli sprouts, these cruciferous vegetables, because that actually helps to upregulate those detox genes. Supporting your phase 2 detoxification pathways with methylation and glucuronidation. So this is your B vitamins, calcium D-glucarate, things like magnesium, choline, betaine, which is your trimethylglycine. I'm not saying, oh, hey, go run out to your, vitamin shop and go buy all these things. I am saying this as educational add information saying, this is what the science has shown, how to regulate these genes, but our audience member, you need to do a little bit of research yourself. And it really is best to work with a practitioner to know what is right for you. Okay. Because some of the stuff may not be, or if you said, oh, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to go get all this and take it, you could throw things off even worse.
Exactly.
You really need to know, what's going on, what you have to work with, and work with someone who knows what they're doing.
I've had a lot of women that went out and said, well, I have, my DNA says that I have estrogen dominance and estrogen toxicity, so I'm going to jump on DIM. They don't even know what their levels are. So that's like saying my bathtub, I have a bathtub and I'm just going to start draining all the water out of the bathtub, but I don't even know how full the bathtub is. Just because you have a tendency or a propensity that you could have it doesn't mean you do have it. And there are gentle ways to do it. And then there's, sledgehammer ways. Then they're having all of these symptoms of low estrogen. And it's like, well, it's because you opened up the bottom of the bathtub and you pulled all the goody good out. And now you're wanting to supplement, but you don't need to supplement. So what we're clearly saying is don't run out and just go buy a whole bunch of stuff and start taking it. Start with one thing. First of all, either get your DNA profile and get yourself so that you're working with someone, or get your DNA profile and then get some lab tests and look, how is my gut? How is my liver detoxification? How are my symptoms? And start working from there.
So Marilla is asking any advice, suggestions for non-alcoholic fatty liver, NAFLD oftentimes it's referred to as, for also postmenopausal belly fat, how to get rid of it once and for all. This is a lot of what we've already been talking about. I'll tell you, amazing things happen when you fix your sleep. Three main things that when I have a client come to me that I want to know: are you sleeping? Are you pooping? And is your blood sugar regulated? Sleeping, absolutely, because that will help with regulation of hormones, with, recovery, everything else. But sometimes when your hormones are off, it will throw your sleep off. It's like that chicken there, the egg type of thing. Are you pooping? You've got to be able to get rid of the toxins in your body. And we are talking even about hormone metabolites, any kind of toxins that you may be taking in. If you're not pooping them out, if you're not, doing all the Asian nation that Dr. Stephanie is so famous for saying, the defecation, urination, perspiration, all of these other Asians, that you've got to get rid of these. If you're not, you're going to be reabsorbing them. And that's not good. That's going to increase inflammation. It's going to increase the stress on your body. It's going to put more pressure on your liver. Okay. So, and here we're talking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, that is generally driven by insulin resistance, which is that third thing I asked. Is your blood sugar regulated? Okay, because that higher blood sugar, again, increasing inflammation. Inflammation is the basis for the majority of all of the chronic issues. So you've got to make sure that the foods that you're eating, the things that you're being exposed to, the stresses that you are dealing with, or that you have, that you have techniques to lessen that stress, to lower the cortisol, because cortisol is a gluconeogenic hormone, meaning that it is going to have your liver make glucose and increase sugar, even though you're not taking it in. And that's why it can be so hard to lose that damn belly fat. If you are dealing with a lot of stress, yeah, you're going to be heavier, even though you may not be eating that much, or you're, not taking in the sugar. So that's going to affect your insulin.
But with insulin resistance,
yes.
So I want you to go, all of you have lab tests. I want you to get glucose. Okay, so your regular fat, but I want you to get a fasting insulin. If
Yes.
you have your fasting insulin and your glucose numbers, you can look at your HOMA, your homeostatic metabolic assessment, HOMA. You can plug those in and see if you're above a 2, you have insulin resistance. So the bottom line is, what do you need to do? You need to work with your provider to get that insulin more sensitive, whether you're doing some berberine, whether you're doing a specific diet. Maybe you're rotating and you do an elimination diet for short term. You've got to get all of that insulin resistance under control and get it under control so that you can get yourself back in balance. Balance is not steady state. If you got a teeter totter, it goes both ways, right? Okay. And so it's be like this, and then it's like this, and it's this. And maybe you've done it alone. Maybe you need somebody to hold your hand. So that's why we provide these. We provide you to get some tidbits so that you go, oh, I didn't think of that. And nobody's ever told me that. But that's also why we have providers that you can work with. That's also why we have seminars. Like we have the She Summit seminar coming up. We just completed one of the She Summits, 3 intensive days where you get to ask one-on-one questions that you get to ask live. You've got experts in the areas that the summit is faced on. Get yourself plugged in. The most expensive supplement you can take is the one that isn't working for you or isn't right for you. The most expensive healthcare you have is when somebody isn't listening to you and isn't personalizing. Just like Dr. Lara said, the N of 1, you are unique. So, we want to make sure that someone's not cookie cuttering you or dismissing you when you've got concerns.
And it's also important, and I'm going to lump in a couple of questions here.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to working with, fatty liver disease and trying to get rid of that belly fat and dealing with that, a lot of that is due to the inflammation. And one of the other questions Lisa asked is, how is inflammation impacted by menopause? Well, you're talking about, first of all, your hormone dysregulation. Dr. Stephanie has already mentioned about how our bodies, our fat actually also makes estrogen. And so it is compensating and expanding and just having everything off, not to mention cortisol levels can be off, inflammation. And it's just this total cycle. But when you're looking in your genes, how do you support yourself? Because okay, all of these things, we know this is going on, but what do? Support your detox pathways. Look and see what your MTHFR, SHMT1, all of the methylation pathway genes, your glutathione conjugation genes, the GST genes, your antioxidation genes, the SOD2, GPX. Take a look at those in the anti-inflammation report and see where you are weak, and then look to see where you can support that, because that will go a long way in clearing just metabolic waste, toxins in the body, as well as those metabolites, those sex hormone metabolites that need clearing. So there's okay, so there's a couple questions that I'm going to kind of combine and have you address, Dr. Stephanie. It's by Robin and Shelley. So Robin is asking, are we ever too old for BHRT? She's 80 this year. And Shelley is asking, who is BHRT not for? So can you kind of work those two questions into a brief answer?
Sure. So the biggest thing that we know about BHRT is we're going to bring you back to a level that is either the beginning of postmenopause or just pre-postmenopause. And if you feel better and your brain, is more supported, you're not going to go wrong. The problem with that is that we don't have the studies and the long-term data to back it up. So the question is it better to do it in a way? One of the communities that we're aligned with, and I interviewed her on, again, one of the podcasts, Mariam Stewart, does a lot of hormone modulation through very specific diets that regulate progesterone and estrogen. That may be an easier place for you to start, Robin, especially because you said you've got some estrogen toxicity issues from the past. Um, the the studies that have been done do not show maximum protection for chronic disease where it does if you've started much earlier, but that doesn't mean that you won't get some benefit. Again, most important thing is talk to your provider about your symptoms. If your symptoms warrant, I need something, and not a symptom squasher, but you want to elevate it. So let's say your testosterone is low. Maybe we don't give you testosterone shots. Maybe we put you on some DHEA, and the DHEA is going to break down into testosterone. That may give you just enough oomph. Is it brain power? Is it muscle that you're looking for? So BHRT may or may not be right depending on what you're looking at. So Shelley, who is it not for? If you have hormone modulated cancers that you know you carry that, and or you've already had it, you don't want to necessarily add hormones without a very skilled provider. Now, you still can, even with triple negative, you can go on BHRT, but you need to do specifically bioidentical and not just HRT, which is the non-bioidentical. But I would only work with a very sophisticated provider to do that. Again, the biggest thing is, what are your symptoms? What does your DNA say? And are you willing, because they're not inexpensive, let's just be real clear. Anything that is going, hormones, peptides, I mean, you're talking several $100s a month. But it also is a quality of life thing. I'm on no other medicine. I'm on my BHRT. I was on testosterone for a while. I don't even need it anymore because I take the DEAH. And so I'm only on progesterone. I take an oral and I'm on a patch. And so it's easy peasy, but I do have to spend a couple $100s a month. Now, I'm not on a blood pressure medicine. I'm not on metformin. I'm not on any of that. I'm in a normal body range. So that's worth it to me. But if you've got to be willing to understand that there are testing and costs that go along with it. It's not just, oh, I'm going to start it today and stop it tomorrow. It's something you have to build up. And it's also a pattern of going through it and going, where do I go? Do I get it right? Now, I can already see we're going to run out of time. Powers that be and our wonderful CEO, I don't know if you're still on here, we are going to need to do this again. In fact, we had 4 topics to cover, and I think we've covered sleep and a little bit of estrogen toxicity. We're going to need to do this again, maybe a part 2, maybe we break it into 4 parts and do it all over. Because I can see that there is a ton of interest here. We still have almost 20 more questions.
Good Lord.
And actually, I can quickly answer a few of them, like short, quick answers. But
okay, so let's do this, ladies. Let's run 5 minutes over, 10 minutes over, no more than that.
I can't. I gotta drop dead at 6:30. I got another client.
Okay, no worries.
But Lara
can.
Dr.
Varden,
yeah,
you can run over. Dr. Nielsen, you are 1000% correct, and I will get a part 2 to this series on the schedule. Everybody be watching their email for that.
Yeah. I love that there's so much engagement. I love that there's so many intelligent people. I love that. Great questions. Great questions. We just won't be able to get to them all tonight. And thanks, Trace, for being able to do that for us.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So I do want to answer real quick. The glasses, Marie Johnson and Rossi Sullivan have asked about the blue light blocker glasses. I'm wearing what we call Viva Rays. I actually have interviewed like 3 times now the founder and CEO, Rudy Nassif, and you can always go back and take a look at the, listen to the podcast again, The DNA Way. You can actually look it up and listen to it right from there. The wonderful information that he has on how light and the Viva Rays can help with women and hormones. So that's what they are. And Marie had asked about, she has prescription and Viva Rays don't work well placing over glasses. These are prescription. You can actually contact them, give them your prescription, and they will make the glasses, these base frames for you, and then it's just magnetic clip-ons for the orange and the red. So there you go. That should be able to help. Okay, so there was another question that I saw that might need your brilliance before you hop off.
You're so sweet.
That I can answer. Transition, solution, seek problems. Wait. Okay. Sandra Lee, she says she's 78. Her estrogen is at 13 and testosterone is 217. Her test says estrogen supplements might not be good, and I don't clear testosterone very well. She thinks estrogen could have many desirable supports for her. First of all, I do want to say that this information is for educational purposes only. You know, we may be doctors, but we're not your doctor, and we don't know all of the information, you know, about you. So that being said, do you have some insights in a general sense that you might be able to give to her?
Well, I have some actually more questions. How did you measure your estrogen? Was it a serum test? What time of the month was the serum test? Was it a urine test? I'm assuming that they were serum. And when it says, my test says estrogen supplements might not be good, again, who says that? Because there's nobody who does a serum test that says estrogen supplements might not be good. Was that your provider said it might not be good? You don't clear testosterone well, okay? So your testosterone is a little bit low for what I would like it for, but if you feel peppy and if you don't have problems keeping muscle tone, then it probably can be okay. I think estrogen could be desirable. What is it you're looking for? So what I see here is is estrogen right for me? But I don't have enough answers to that question to know if that's right for you. So I would suggest you either join us on one of the summits where we can dig in a little deeper, that you get a personal consultation, or you go back to your primary provider and have them plan for maybe some more extensive testing for you to see, along with your DNA test, if it makes sense.
And there was a question specifically asking about you. She's saying that Luhu says 3M, she said, but 3M contains PFAS. Can you say the name of the tape you use again, Dr. Stephanie? The mouth tape.
Let me look it up real quickly, because I said it was Somanex, but I think that's an old time sleep medicine that was a antihistamine. Let me look up Somlenex mouth tape. I liked it because it just, let's see, that's not it. Oh, Somnifix, Somnifix, Somnifix is a hypoallergenic for sensitive skin that can be used, easy to put on and easy to put off. And again, it's clear, and they will tell you that it's only good for one night. I am living proof that I used it for 7 nights in a row. I did have to do a lot of moisturizer in the morning because my lips got a little bit dry and kind of the areas around my mouth, and I felt like my lines showed a little more. So I just heavy did moisturizer in the morning, but that worked okay.
So,
and with that, I'm 2 minutes from my next appointment.
Dr. Stephanie, thank you so much. We absolutely love having you here. I love working with you. You're such a hoot and you're so brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank all of you for being here. Thank you for staying on. I can't believe we've had so many people on for so long. We will do part 2 and possibly part 3. I think we should break it down and even get some slides for next time so we can show the pathways and people can look. So
yes,
we'll talk.
I am going to stay on for,
okay.
For 5-10 minutes to answer some more questions. So, all right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Take care, sweetie. Bye-bye.
So I'm going to run
through.
So
maybe we run through someone's question who hasn't been able to get a question in yet. Someone we haven't already answered stuff to.
Yep, I've got Marilyn King George. She says helpful suggestions for healthcare workers, shift workers, evenings, sometimes overnights. Actually, the podcast that I had mentioned earlier that I did with Viva Ray's CEO and founder, Rudy Nassif, we actually dove into this because my son happens to be a overnight shift worker as a traveling respiratory therapist at other hospitals. And it is difficult. And I got him a pair, and it has made a wonderful difference. But there's more than just utilizing blue light blockers. You know, we actually, in the podcast, we actually talk about different things that you can do about using different lights, that, you know, like what Dr. Stephanie was talking about, using these full spectrum lights, you know, at different times. It's really strategically working it and using these devices based on the shift work that you're doing, that when you are sleeping during the day, that your entire room is totally blacked out, that it is cooler, that you are mimicking what it would be like as if it was nighttime. So, I mean, we can get into this a little bit more. And actually we have with our sleep, we've done sleep webinars and some others that I definitely would look into. So that would definitely be a question. Okay. Claustrophobic people, Danny asking about she doesn't think that they would tolerate tape over their mouth. Absolutely. So that probably would not be a biohacking technique that would be good for that person. So again, everything in what is good for you. You're your own N of one. Let's see. Roberta is saying her DNA says she's prone to estrogen toxicity. What does that mean? That's what I was talking about earlier with the way that estrogen is broken down into the 3 different estrogen metabolites. If you produce genetically any of those metabolites faster, then that means that you are at risk, not that you have estrogen toxicity, just mean that genetically you are more at risk for estrogen toxicity, higher inflammation. So that's where the testing comes in to see, is that really true? How much are you actually making? And in the Dutch test, it actually shows like in a pie chart and shows the percentages of how many of the metabolites are you actually making? And from there, what support is needed and where is that support needed? Because it also looks at the methylation pathway. How quickly or how well are you methylating like your 2-hydroxyestrone into the bioavailable form, etc. So again, test, don't guess. Let's see, who else do we have? Marianne, she says, I consistently sleep from midnight to 8 and wake up rested. Is there a benefit to going to bed earlier, for example, 11 to 7 instead? Well, that depends. You're saying that you are rested. Fantastic. If you are able to function, if your blood markers are good, if you have low stress, low inflammation, your objective tests, say you're wearing an Oura ring or a Whoop or some sort of sleep tracker, and it's showing, okay, yes, I am getting enough deep sleep every night, which is that time that, you know, our brain gets cleaned, that we do the repair, that our gut is doing the repair, that we're making testosterone in our bodies because we do that during sleep, that you are getting enough REM, that memory information processing, going from short-term memory to long-term memory, that if all of this is good, heart rate variability, all of these biomarkers, then I would say then that would be fine. You know, that's probably something in your clock gene where that works well for you. So now, is there a benefit to going to bed earlier? Well, there could be, but maybe not. Again, this is the N of 1. So, but what does just waking up feeling rested? Is that also meaning that the objective data is also proving that, yes, that time period of midnight to 8 is working well for you. If it is, keep doing it. If not, maybe shift it by that hour. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, here's a good one. Natalie, she's asking, how do you know when you've transitioned from menopause to postmenopause? And this is kind of the wording, because menopause happens, actually, it only happens in like a 3-day period, but we don't really know unless you are actually testing every single day and know exactly when, you hit that time period. In general sense, you go through menopause, or that a woman is in menopause when they no longer have their period for 1 complete year. So the last, your last period, 1 year later, if you haven't bled, then you are in menopause. And the postmenopause, it's really just any time after that year. So, I mean, it's not like there's that significant of a difference like there is in menses and perimenopause, or perimenopause to menopause. It's just like all the other time after you've hit that 1 year. So, all right. And let's see if there's that one. I'm just seeing if I can do one last quick question. Reactions is a gentle brand. Melissa asking about the mouth tape reactions to adhesives. Is there a gentle brand we recommend? Dr. Stephanie had already mentioned a couple. I think it would really be a matter of how sensitive are you? Checking out some of these hypoallergenic, very sensitive tapes, getting it, trying it, see if you react again. You're your own N of 1. So really, check it from there, because you won't know until you try, but definitely look for something that that is that hypoallergenic, that doesn't have any of the chemicals or compounds that you are normally sensitive to. And there are so many brands out there. So it really just would be a matter of putting forth the effort to do the research and to look into that. So I think from there, we're already 7 minutes after. Should we call it? And how are we doing?
Yeah, I think that you have done the marathon tonight. I think you've done a great job. We've still got 120 plus people in here. So let's do a part 2, like Dr. Nielsen said. Let's do a part 3. People need this information, and let's make sure, if you guys want to see more stuff like this, email me. Email me at ceo@thednacompany.com. I want you to get the programming you want. I want you to get the resources you need. Please email me and help me and my team continue to help all of you. Dr. Barden, as always, you are glorious and wonderful and beautiful and all of those things. And your information is phenomenal. My team in the background, thank you all for staying late tonight. I appreciate all of you and everyone that attended. I hope that you got what you wanted out of this, and have a good night.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you at the next one. Take care.